Never open the walls of your grandparents' house without being prepared for what you might find. What we found changed everything we thought we knew about my grandmother. My name is Lucas. I'm 28 years old, and this is the craziest story of my life. A story that involves lies, family secrets, and a hidden fortune that no one imagined existed. I'm going to be honest with you from the start. My grandmother, Maria, was always known in the family as the poorest person there was. She lived in an old, dark, and damp basement on the outskirts of town. The walls had mold, the ceiling leaked when it rained, and the smell of dampness was so strong it stuck to the clothes of anyone who visited. Her furniture was made up of things people threw away. The kitchen table had 3 legs and was supported by bricks. The couch had more holes than fabric. She wore the same 3 outfits all year long, washing and rotating between them constantly. Every Sunday, my family made sure to bring food to her. My mother prepared packed meals. My father brought bread, fruit, and milk. My uncles contributed money for the electricity and water bills. It was a collective effort because we all thought we were helping an elderly lady who had lost everything in life and lived in extreme poverty. She always thanked us with tears in her eyes, saying she didn't know what would become of her without us. It broke our hearts. Grandma Maria's story was sad. She had been widowed for over 30 years. My grandfather died when my mother was still a teenager. According to what we were always told, he left nothing but debts. The family went hungry back then. My mother told me stories of how she and her siblings had to share a single loaf of bread for dinner, how sometimes they went to bed hungry, how Grandma worked as a cleaning lady in 3 different houses just to be able to pay the rent for the basement where they lived. Over time, my uncles grew up and left. My mother married my father. Everyone tried to convince Grandma to leave that horrible basement, but she always refused. She said it was the only home she knew, that she had memories there, that she didn't want to be a burden to anyone. We respected her decision, even though we thought it was absurd. Then, 3 months ago, Grandma Maria passed away. She was 84 years old and died in her sleep of natural causes. It was peaceful, without suffering, and in a way, we were all even relieved that she didn't have to live in that misery anymore. The funeral was simple. We pooled money among the family to pay for the burial. Grandma was buried next to my grandfather, as she had always wanted. It was a sad moment, but also one of acceptance. Life had been hard on her, but now she was at peace. After the funeral came the part no one likes, cleaning out the house of the person who died. My mother couldn't do it alone. The memories were too much for her. So my 2 cousins, Rafael and Pedro, and I volunteered to do the heavy lifting. The idea was to empty the basement, throw away the old furniture, clean everything up, and return the keys to the property owner. When we entered that basement for the first time after Grandma's death, the feeling was strange. The silence was heavy. You could still smell her scent, that mixture of cheap soap and mothballs. Her things were all there, exactly as she left them. The coffee cup was still in the sink. The remote control for the old TV was on the arm of the torn couch. We started working. We separated her few clothes to donate. The old furniture went straight to the trash because no one was going to want that stuff. We found some old photos, documents, things we saved for my mother to decide what to do with later. The work was tedious and sad at the same time. It was when we got to her bedroom that things started to get strange. Grandma's bedroom was tiny. It only fit an old single bed and a wooden wardrobe that looked like it came from the 1960s. The walls were peeling and stained with moisture. Raphael started moving the bed out of place so we could clean behind it, and that's when we noticed something different. "Dude, this wall here is weird," he said, tapping lightly on the wall with his knuckles. I went to see what it was. The wall made a hollow sound when we tapped on it, different from the rest of the basement walls. Pedro, who is a civil engineer, was immediately curious. He started examining the wall more closely, tapping at various points, putting his ear to it. "There's something here. Either it's a construction defect or there's an empty space behind this wall." We stood there, looking at that dirty, peeling wall, not knowing what to do. At first, we thought it might just be a structural problem, but something in our heads wouldn't let us just ignore it. After all, why would there be an empty space right in Grandma's bedroom? Pedro left and came back with some tools he had in his car, a small sledgehammer, a crowbar, gloves. We looked at each other for a moment. Should we do this? But curiosity was stronger. We decided to open the wall. The first sledgehammer blows were careful. We didn't want to destroy everything if it was just our mistake, but as the wall began to give way, we confirmed that there really was an empty space there. The plaster fell, revealing bricks. Pedro began to carefully remove the bricks, and then we saw. Behind the bricks, there was a space carved into the wall, and inside that space, protected by thick plastic bags, were several wooden boxes. My heart started racing. Rafael and Pedro had the same shocked expression that I probably had on my face. With trembling hands, we began to remove the boxes. They were heavy, very heavy. We opened the first box right there on the dirty floor of Grandma's bedroom. Gold bars. They weren't jewelry. They weren't coins. They were professional gold bars, the kind you see in bank heist movies, each one with markings, serial numbers, and specified weight. Official, legitimate bars. We were in absolute silence for what seemed like an eternity. Our brains couldn't process what we were seeing. Poor Grandma, the grandma who lived off family donations, the grandma who wore old clothes and ate what we brought her, had gold bars hidden in the wall? We opened the other boxes. More bars, and more, and more. In total, we counted 52 gold bars, each one weighing 1 kilogram. 52 kilograms of pure gold. Pedro, who is the most rational of the three of us, immediately grabbed his phone and started researching the market value of gold. His hands trembled as he typed. After a few minutes of calculations, he looked up at us, completely pale. "More than 2 million euros, he whispered. The world stopped. I sat on the floor because my legs wouldn't support me anymore. Rafael started pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair, clearly in shock. Pedro just stood there, holding his phone, looking at the gold bars as if they were going to disappear at any moment. 2 million euros, hidden in the wall of a miserable basement, belonging to a woman the whole family thought lived in poverty. Questions started exploding in my head. Where did this gold come from? How did Grandma get this? Why was she hiding it? Why did she let the family give her food and money when she had millions hidden in the wall? Nothing made sense. After the initial shock, the first thing we did was call my mother. She was at home, still grieving, trying to process her own grandmother's death. When we told her what we found, at first she thought we were joking. Then she got angry, thinking it was a bad joke. It was only when we sent photos of the gold bars that she understood it was real. She arrived at the basement in 15 minutes, along with 2 of my uncles. The scene that followed was one of complete hysteria. My mother was crying and screaming at the same time. My older uncle went mute, just staring at the bars. My younger uncle started turning the whole basement upside down, looking for more things, hidden things, for answers, for anything that would explain what happened. We found some more things that day. Inside the old wardrobe, at the bottom of a drawer under old clothes, was a shoebox. Inside it, documents. Many documents. They were old papers, some yellowed with time. Most of them were in German, a language none of us knew well, but we managed to understand some things. There were bank records from accounts in Switzerland, property contracts, deeds of land in places we didn't even know where they were, and letters, several handwritten letters. One of the letters was from my grandfather, written to Grandma. The handwriting was hard to read, but my older uncle, who knew his father's handwriting, managed to decipher some parts. The letter was from 1982, just before my grandfather died. In it, he told Grandma to keep everything hidden, that no one could know, and that she should live simply so not to raise suspicion. Another document we found was a kind of handwritten inventory, a list of assets, and the list was absurd. In addition to the gold, there was mention of bank accounts with enormous amounts, properties in other countries, investments in companies. If all that was true, Grandma didn't have 2 million. She had much, much more. But how? How did a lady who worked as a cleaning lady accumulate such a fortune? And why was my grandfather, who supposedly died poor and left the family in misery, involved in this? We decided to hire a lawyer specializing in inheritance and a private investigator. We needed to understand what was happening before doing anything with that gold or the documents. The investigations took weeks. What we discovered was a story that none of us expected. My grandfather wasn't just an ordinary worker like we always thought. During World War II, he had been a soldier. After the war, in the years of chaos that followed in Europe, he got involved with the black market. It wasn't anything violent or dangerous like the mafia, but he was part of a network of people who smuggled valuable items. And Grandma Maria followed those instructions to the letter for over 30 years. She let her own children go through hardships. She accepted donations of food and money. She lived in a horrible basement, all to protect a fortune she wasn't even sure if she could ever use. According to the documents we found and the lawyer's investigations, much of that wealth was technically legal now. The gold had no markings of theft, the bank accounts were declared, just forgotten. The properties had documentation. Of course, the origin of the money was questionable, coming from black market activities from decades ago, but with time and changes in the laws, much had expired. The lawyer guided us on how to proceed. We declared the inheritance. We paid the taxes owed, which were not few, but in the end, the family was left with an amount that changed everyone's lives. My mother didn't have to work anymore. My uncles were able to pay off debts and help their own children. My cousins and I received a share that gave us financial security. We used part of the money to renovate Grandma and Grandpa's grave, placing a dignified headstone with flowers and constant care. But you know what's craziest about all this? The feeling of confusion that remained. On one hand, we're grateful. That money saved the lives of many people in the family. Problems that seemed impossible to solve were solved. Dreams that seemed unattainable became possible. On the other hand, there's a deep sadness. Grandma could have lived well. She could have enjoyed life, traveled, eaten at good restaurants, lived in a decent house. She could have helped her children when they went through real hardships. My mother told me there were times when she almost lost her house because she couldn't pay the bills, and Grandma was there, with millions hidden in the wall, watching her daughter suffer. Was it loyalty to my grandfather? Was it fear? Was it the mentality of someone who lived through difficult times and developed a paranoia about money and security? We'll never know. What I do know is that my grandmother's story changed completely after this discovery. She's no longer poor Grandma Maria who lived in misery. She's the woman who kept a giant secret for over 30 years, who chose to live in a constant lie, who sacrificed her own comfort and happiness, and in a way, the family's comfort, out of loyalty to a secret from the past. There are days when I wonder, did she want to tell? Did she regret not having enjoyed it in the last years of her life? Did she look at those hidden gold bars and think about everything she could have done differently? My mother said something that stuck with me. She said that maybe Grandma lived with so much fear that fear became her prison. And even though there was no longer any real reason to be afraid, she was so used to that life that she couldn't change. The basement was emptied. The walls were closed. The property owner never knew what we found there. The house was returned, and today someone else lives there, with no idea of the fortune that was hidden in those walls for so long. We kept some of Grandma's things as keepsakes, the old photos, some letters, a rosary she always carried. Things that make us remember her not as the woman with the secret, but as the grandmother who hugged us every Sunday when we arrived to visit her. Because in the end, despite everything, she was our grandmother, and she loved us in her own way, within the limitations she created for her own life. This story changed the way I see people. Everyone has secrets. Everyone has parts of their life they hide from others. Some people take those secrets to the grave. And sometimes those secrets are bigger than anyone could imagine. Sometimes I pass by that basement, look at the small windows at street level, and think about everything that happened there. I think about Grandma living in that dark and damp place, sitting on the old couch, eating the food we brought, knowing that a few meters away was a hidden fortune. What kind of willpower is necessary to live like that? What kind of fear traps you that way? And was it worth it? These are questions that will never have answers. What I can say is that that day changed everything. The day we found 2 million euros in gold hidden in the wall of my grandmother's house. The day we discovered that everything we thought we knew about her was actually only half the story. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this.